Welcome to Stop the Fight, and today we are recapping yesterday's action-packed triple header. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, though!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man, good boy, just...
Alright, let's start with the main event. Jermell Charlo split decision draw against Brian Castano. Now, in the previous episode, I kept calling Castellano. Sorry about that. That's my bad. But Brian Castano, I'm going to get his name right from now on, especially after that kind of a performance. Now, what happened? Well, it was a split decision draw. Now, of course, I recommended the under 10.5. And at points in the fight, with both fighters, it looked like that would pay out. But it was not to be. Although, I will give a shout out to my boy who wound up picking the draw. Something like a plus. It's like something like a 20-1. So congratulations to my boy on that really timely and really, really niche pick. I think I was generally correct in that Castano is in the wrong height range for Charlo. At numerous points of the fight, Charlo was able to get enough leverage, specifically at throwing his left hook and hurting Castano. I think he hurt him 3 times in the fight, once early on. And all 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, that I remember off the top of my head, were left hooks that were thrown at his own shoulder height. And that happens to be where Brian Castano's face is. Remember, Charlo clearly can leverage power at that height range. And I believe in any rematch, we should really consider this going forward. I mean, this fight was nearly going to be stopped early on. But Charlo has flaws, and we're going to talk about them right now. Let's talk about the fight. So, the fight starts off with Charlo very quickly getting the upper hand on Castano. He hurts him relatively early on. I think it was in the first or second round. It was the second round. I remember. Yeah. He hurts him in the second round. He hurts him off a left hook. He's countering him off the ropes. Now, this is basically the storyline in the fight. Is that Castano's going forward, gets Charlo on the ropes. Charlo attempts to counter off the ropes because that's what Charlo does. He's a counter puncher. He's not particularly good leading, and in the center of the ring, the opponent has to give him something, either stand still or just, flail around. But generally speaking, what Castano was doing was pushing him back, was boxing really smart. He was on his back foot. He would not be leaning over. So you see a lot of fighters, especially offensive fighters, you see this with Cotto a lot back in the day, is that they'll lean on their front foot. They're offense-heavy fighters. But we've seen with the Charlos, and with Jermell Charlo as well, obviously, both Charlos, they are masters at throwing, I'm going to say masters, but they are very proficient at throwing the uppercut. They will put you out. And one of the ways you get caught with an uppercut is you're leaning forward and you're throwing punches coming forward. You're a little bit front foot heavy. That leaves you wide open, especially if you're sitting down a little bit to that uppercut. And a Castano's height and a Castano's leverage, if he would have been front foot heavy, this would have been an early night for sure. But as we saw, as I saw, most importantly, Castano fought really, really smart. He was a back foot heavy, which means the uppercut. And you saw I think Charlo throw it a few times, but it was wide. It wouldn't land. He was fighting off his back foot, which does not leave much room for the uppercut, at least not a safe uppercut. And Charlo was smart enough not to throw it. He threw it a couple times, but realized it wasn't there for him this night. So what he would do is he would push Charlo back to the ropes and then unload on him there. In the second round, though, Castano gets caught. He gets caught in an exchange, and Charlo clips him with that left hook. Really tight, really short left hook. Now, that's generally where the range where, if you're Castano, that's where you want to fight because you have shorter arms. So you want to be up close because your punches are shorter. But Charlo is a good counterpuncher. He's a good counterpuncher, and because of how tall Castano is, Charlo doesn't have to throw that hook up to hit his chin. He just has to throw it at his own shoulder height. And guys, that's what I was talking about in the fight, why I chose the under 10.5, is that hook, it was there for Charlo all night, really, because Castano has to come close to unload on Charlo, to hit Charlo. So Again, Castano gets hurt in that second round. I actually thought that was it. I thought that Charlo was going to be able to go for the kill, but again, Castano's proved me wrong in many points. He was smart enough to survive. He was able to move, circle well. You know, a lot of fighters go straight back, and especially early on, Castano was able to circle properly, hold, clinch, you know, do the stuff that a veteran, a more experienced fighter would know what to do to survive, and he did. And in the following round, he actually wound up hurting Charlo in a very similar exchange. He got him to the ropes. In come the exchanges, but this time the shorter armed Castano lands a left hook of his own, hurting Charlo. I actually think a ref could have counted that as a knockdown, as the ropes kept Charlo up. I think it was pretty evident. Well, at least, you know, I didn't watch any. I didn't see the fight a second time. I didn't watch a replay or anything like that. But from what I saw live, it looked like the ropes held him up, and it could have been a knockdown ruled. So what you wind up having is the early 2 rounds I gave to Charlo, and then the next 2 I gave to Castano. I think round 5 was close, and then I gave the next 6, 7, 8, and 9 all to Castano. So on my scorecards, I had actually rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to Castano. That's the fight. That was the fight in my books. After round 9, it was 7-2 for Castano. So I knew that round 5 was close in my eyes, but I thought that Castano was able to just keep pushing, and at points he was beating Charlo up in the fight, guys. He really was. He was landing overhand rights. I don't know what was going on with Charlo. I don't know if it seemed like he couldn't deal with a smarter aggression of Castano. Castano had very smart aggression. It made Charlo a little bit gun shy. It really did. I think him getting hurt early on in the fight, maybe he was affected by it. I don't know what it was. But he, at numerous points in those middle rounds, was getting openly beat up. Those rounds were not close. I really felt that the majority of those middle rounds were Castano's, clearly. So then, right, we get to rounds 10, 11, and 12, and I'm messaging my boy this time saying, well, I think Charlo needs a knockdown to win, or at least to even it up. Well, at the very least, he's got to sweep the rounds, and I thought he did just that. And in round 10... he actually hurts Castano again significantly. I think with a similar thing, with a left hook that hurts him. I think it was like a right hand followed by a left hook. And you know, why do they hurt even this late in the fight? Now, Charlo's actually against Tony Harrison showed that he carries power late into the fight. Well, this is, guys, the rounds 10, 11, 12. That's late in the fight. We're gonna call anything after round 7 late in the fight, or 8 late in the fight. You know, so here he hurts Castano. Castano, again, veteran moves, was able to survive. But you felt something had slightly shifted with Charlo. It's almost like he got a second wind. He then goes on, and I think quite comfortably wins the 11th round. And the fight, in my eyes, kind of hedged on, or let's say waited on, the 12th round. I thought that if Castano wins here, I think he would have won very clearly. 8-4 on my scorecards if he wins the 12th round. The 12th round was close. It was close. I thought it could have went either way. So on my scorecard, you know, let's say you give it to Charlo. On my scorecard, it was 7-5 Castano, but there was 1 or 2 rounds, specifically the 5th round in my eyes, that was close. So in my head, I knew the fight was either a draw or a close Castano victory. But I felt that he did not do enough in that 12th round to really seal the deal. I felt that if he would have really won that 12th round, well, my scorecards, it would have been 8-4, and the fight would have been close, but wide enough, because there were some of those rounds that were not close at all in the middle. There was, outside of the 5th round, I thought everything else was pretty clear in the fight. But I was worried, you know. I thought he probably lost the 12th, and then if he lost the 5th, you get a draw. So, you know, and I'm thinking, damn, my boy really got it. So, of course, Jimmy Lennon Jr. goes, we have a split decision, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, shit. Here we go. And you hear Weisfeld, 114-113 score for Castano. And then you hear, this is that Canelo Floyd Mayweather scorecard. 117-111 for Charlo. Come the fuck on. I'm sorry for cursing, guys, but come on. 117-111? Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your damn mind? That means that judge only found 3 rounds to give to Castano. Are you crazy? He won like 3 rounds in a row at one point in the fight, let alone 3 rounds in the total fight. I don't see how you give less, really. First of all, you can't give less than 5 rounds. I thought even if you gave every single close round and then some to Castano, I just can't imagine you giving him anything less than 5. 3, like, I mean, it happens, right? It happens. Welcome to boxing, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to boxing. Not only did Castano outland Charlo by 20-something punches, but here he is. He wasn't even given more than 3 rounds on this scorecard. So here I am. At that point, I actually at that point believed in my heart that Charlo was going to get it. Now, I did tell you guys that the Charlos, being fan favorites, being Al Heyman fighters, they had to win the decision. They're not going to get a decision loss here. But 114 on the third card. Split decision draw. Holy moly. That was, that was a well-deserved draw. As much as I thought Castano won, and I do think Castano won. On my scorecard, he did win. I thought that because of how Charlo closed the fight, and he closed it strongly, you have to assume that he did take those last 3 rounds. He probably took the first 2, right? And he probably takes one of the rounds in the middle. And that's your 6-6 card. And that's kind of what you had on the last scorecard. Tim Cheetah. And here, I'm looking at a scorecard. And he gives the last 3 to Charlo, the 3 prior to Castano, 2 prior to Charlo, 2 prior to Castano, and the first 2 rounds are split 1 apiece. And you can have that card. You can have that card. There were a few close rounds here that kind of went either way, and there were wide rounds here. So you saw those last 3 rounds were most likely going to go. And as I'm looking at the 3 scorecards, if Castano finishes the fight strong, similar to Lomachenko, but if Castano finishes that fight strong and wins this fight and wins that 12th round, he wins this fight. He wins this fight on the scorecards. That 12th round, I think, is what cost Castano this fight. Well, it didn't cost him the fight, but it cost him both the fight. I mean, like it cost him the win because he did get a draw, even though I thought he won. So we lose the bet. Not a big deal, but again, there were some fights where we were dead wrong on. Were we dead wrong on this fight? We were partially wrong. Castano turned out to be a better fighter than I had given him credit for, and I did say he was a good fighter with a draw against Lara. I think Lara is one of the superior light mid or super welter, whatever. But I know he's moved up now. But Lara is not an easy fight for anybody. Don't care that he's old now. Not an easy fight. Getting a draw against Lara shows you're at least a pretty damn good fighter. So, what can we take away in a rematch? Because a rematch has to happen now. Well, I actually think if they give a similar odds to under 10.5, I'm going to take the under 10.5 again. I believe that I was partly vindicated with the amount of times Charlo was able to hurt Castano, especially with the hooks. Now, guys, when hooks are landed by the taller fighter up close, it means that, and they hurt the shorter fighter, it means that the shorter fighter is always in danger. We know Charlo can hurt you from the outside. The issue becomes he can also be beat from the outside, as you saw with Tony Harrison. But now, technically up close, that's supposed to be Castano's game. And it was for many points of the fight. But he is vulnerable enough up close in his own wheelhouse, in his own kind of home court advantage, simply because he's too short. Those hooks land at ease on his chin and on his face. That's in a dangerous spot to be with. Jermell Charlo is not a particularly strong puncher. I've already said he's got 18 knockouts in 35 fights. That's a respectable knockout ratio, 50%, but it's not, 36 fights now, but it's not anything to write home about. The fact that he was able to hurt Castano at numerous points, I think 3 points of the fight, shows us that Castano's weakness or Jermell Charlo's power is going to be there all night in a rematch as well. Except now, I believe the counter-puncher always has an advantage in a rematch. Always. Because what's Castano going to do in a rematch? You have to imagine, styles do make fights in boxing. A counterpuncher is going to get better as the fight goes on. Simply because he figures out your speed, your timing, your angles more and more and more, the more rounds he sees on you. You kind of saw this with Kovalev Ward, where regardless of how much you think, what you think about the first fight, by the second fight, in the second half of the first fight, Ward started to figure out Kovalev a little bit. And then in the second fight, it took him fewer rounds to get even with Kovalev. I still believe he dropped like the first 3 or 4 rounds against Kovalev, but by the 5th and 6th round, it looked like Ward was on top of Kovalev already. And this happens with counterpunchers all the time. The first time Bernard Hopkins fought Jean Pascal, he was surprised by the awkwardness and the speed and the angles of Pascal because Pascal has that Roy Jones light style. Now, as the fight kept going, you see that Bernard Hopkins is starting to understand, starting to feel out, starting to time out Pascal. And in the second fight, he wins a close but clear unanimous decision against Pascal. Why? Because he's a counterpuncher. He's a counter. And counterpunchers get better the second time around. And that's what Jermell Charlo is. He's a counterpuncher, an athletic, explosive counterpuncher. He's going to know for a second fight against Brian Castano what Brian Castano is going to do. It's clear how Brian Castano has to fight Charlo. He's got to fight him up close, but he gets hurt up close. In a second fight, I believe that's a recipe for disaster. I really do. I believe in a rematch, I will have to choose Charlo, even though I am super impressed. I was super impressed. I am super impressed with Castano. I believe, he made a fan out of me for sure. I just think, unfortunately, with the height, with the styles, in the second fight, I do not think Castano can beat Charlo in a second fight. Again, I could be wrong, but I think this fight ends one way or the other. Either Castano is able to get on him and sit on him better in a second fight, in which case he's going to get Charlo out of there just by pressuring him, or Charlo is going to apply counter hooks all night long. And now that he was able to land numerous times that left hook, I believe it's going to find that same home again. So we did, like I said, we did wind up losing on this card in terms of betting. Didn't make any money. Again, my boy did, so congratulations to him. But like I said, it was a really good fight. No, it wasn't an excellent fight. It's not going to be a fight you remember years from now, but it was a good fight for sure. And if you haven't watched it and you're a boxing fan, if you like Charlo, if you like Castano, go watch it because it was one of those fights where you see a good pressure fighter against a counterpuncher, in which case both show what can happen when they are on their game, when the styles are working. Castano pressuring well, gets Charlo to the ropes, applying pressure, hurting him at times, especially in that in like that 3rd round, 4th round, and vice versa. The counterpuncher kind of baiting in the pressure fighter and hooking him or countering him, landing and getting him in trouble, landing those power shots. Now, what else? On the undercard, we had the Emmanuel Alim fight against Amilcar Vidal. Now, Vidal is an undefeated, tall Uruguayan, 6 foot tall middleweight, strong middleweight. And here he was against this, again, another kind of high dynamic, a 5'9" Emmanuel Alim. Now, Emmanuel Alim is 18-3, 2 draws, 11 knockouts. He's a good, respectable fighter, but I thought Amilcar Vidal was going to go through him simply because he's had, in his previous fights, he's got 2 first-round knockouts and a second-round knockout. But here was a little, I shouldn't even say that, it just looks small compared to Vidal. Alim, really fought his heart out, and I thought he could have easily been given the draw in that fight. I thought he could have easily been given the draw, but he lost by a majority decision. Interesting fight. Gave it his all. Both fighters did. A lot of shots landed. In the second fight, we had Ronaldo Romero against Anthony Yiggett fight. Now, that was an awkward fight to watch because Yiggett, that is a tough style to look at. That is, and it's just not, it was not aesthetic. It honestly looked like Yiggett had never fought before at points. This is his second knockout loss, or second stoppage loss. And he just did not look like he belongs at the championship level. He really does it. I can't tell you anything about Ronaldo Romero because it looked like two kind of baby deer on ice in there. It looked uncoordinated. Nobody came out of here looking good, and certainly not Yiggett. I know Romero said he wants, what's his name? Gervonta Davis. I mean, no freaking way. Not yet. At least not until you see them in there with somebody else. Someone who can really get Romero to show you something. Because that was not it. That was not it. Yiget is an eccentric fighter, let's put it that way. And he was stopped in the 7th round. Well, okay, guys, that's going to do it for me. It's a short recap episode. Again, go check out certainly the last fight against Castano versus Charlo. Very educational fight. Very good fight. And I'll see you guys on a Thursday. We'll talk about it next week. It's over.
I'm going to go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy. You know, just.